this adventure, we're exploring the corner of Colorado, Wyoming, and Nebraska, seeing some paleontological, archaeological, and historic sites. We headed by going out east and following the plains north through Colorado, Wyoming, and Nebraska. Driving through western Nebraska, we make our way slowly but surely to our home base of Crawford, Nebraska, a small ranching town in the extreme northwest part of Nebraska. As you can see, the drive was full of sunsets and rainbows and beautiful open wide prairies. Making some breakfast in our rental, we head out to Hudson Mang, a site that I did archaeology in the 90s. And here we are in Crawford. The way out to Hudson Mang, it follows some dirt roads through some beautiful badland country. A lot of this is ranching country, and that's actually the history of this site. It was found when they were making a stock pond on Bureau of Land Management land and found a bunch of bones turned up in the till of the bulldozer, which upon further investigation actually turns out to be a Paleo-Indian kill site or processing site. Still a bit of a mystery, but there's a beautiful visitor center. When I was there, it was a much more primitive site. We stayed in tents and spent 40 days in the field excavating the site. Inside the interpretive site, you can actually see exposed portions of the bone bed and hear about the three historic interpretations of the site. Initially, it was thought to be a jump site. Then it was thought to be a natural disaster, and now the latest interpretation is that it was a multiple season, multiple year processing site for bison by Paleo-Indian people. And of course, one of the highlights of visiting Hudson Mang Archaeological Site is they do let you get to practice being a paleo hunter and getting the styrofoam bison with an antler helmet. This region is not only famous for archaeological sites, but has quite a beautiful open area in the Badlands to explore, which, if you get further into them, actually yields quite a few vertebrate fossils as well as some turtle fossils for the keen eye. We headed to our next site up against the Black Hills of South Dakota, which you can see off in the distance here. Driving through badlands and grasslands, we made our way to the town of Hot Springs, South Dakota, which is famous for the mammoth site. The mammoth site is a paleontological wonder. At one time, this was actually a hot spring with steep sides that attracted mammoth to its warm waters and grassy shores that were year-roundly available to them to graze on. But the mammoth that entered would soon find out that they could not escape the slippery sides of this sinkhole come hot spring, which leaves us thousands of years later to see several fully articulated mammoth skeleton. Both woolly mammoth and Columbia mammoth are collected here. I think there's over 20 individuals. You can also see spots where they left footprints in the sediment. But ultimately, you can see how the mammoth collected along the edges here, trying to escape the hot springs to no avail. It's a great visitor center with lots of interpretive signs. Here's some mammoths to scale. I don't even see that as a pygmy mammoth. But also they have replica castings of tusks and jawbones and leg bones and things you can play around with to get an idea of what the site is like and also be a little silly like we were here. The site also has a very good display of bison as well, giving you an idea of how the Native Americans over thousands of years utilized various species of bison historically and prehistorically. And you can see the points they used that connect to their culture and the time periods. So we had fun kind of getting caught up on a little Paleo-Indian archaeology as well at the mammoth site. The time to spare on our weekend adventure, we headed out to Wyoming, and on our way we kind of let the wind blow us in any direction, exploring side roads to find some Oregon trail ruts. Now, everybody remembers the Oregon Trail video game from when we were kiddos, but here are some legit Oregon trail ruts. You can see how the thousands of immigrants traipsing across the United States, trying to expand our western horizons, left their mark on the landscape. It's a great little interpretive spot to stop and take a look. little park and sidewalk, and you see several sections where there are Oregon Trail routes. After the wagon trains came the trains. Here is a historic watering tower for trains when steam locomotives were to go. We explored another side road and we found ourselves at Fort Laramie National Historic Site. This is actually a cavalry station, quite a large fort, well preserved, houses, barracks, an interpretive site. Amazing that this relic of Western expansion is just kind of tucked away in this corner of Wyoming and Nebraska and Colorado set to explore. It is part of the National Park Service, so they have all of the buildings set up and restored with historical interiors and artifacts to give you an idea of what life was like for various people that lived in Fort Laramie, from the soldiers to the officers to the wives and children and family of the officers that lived on this site, as well as the Native Americans that would use this as a trading post and a location as they migrated across the western landscape. Muskogee wagon as well. Makes me wonder how many wagon tongues they have, just in case they have to ford a river as they make their way out to Oregon. The highlights is the Rangers actually are docents as well. They put on some reenactments. Here they are firing a historic cannon, just as they would back in the 1860s and 70s. Besides the domestic displays, there's also displays of historic arms and armor at this site. Fort Laramie is everything you would imagine from a Western base. You have homesteads for the officers and their families. Wives and children would follow them on their extreme Western posting. Exploring the site gives you an idea of how civilized things were out here in the frontier. And if you read the plaques, you get an idea that society was quite fun. It was a very great place for families and the wives and officers to hang out and socialize on the western extreme. It also is a trading post. As you can see here, all of the things you might need to survive out in the pioneer days. And as you can see, the interiors of these houses are quite nice. These are the officers' quarters. Very Victorian living, quite comfortable. But if you were naughty, you could end up in the site's jail, which was not so comfortable and not so pleasant. It was a hot day, so we stopped in the saloon and got some sarsaparilla. As you can see here, Audrey is enjoying, or maybe not enjoying, her first taste of sarsaparilla. While many of the houses are fully repaired, there are some remnants of housing that are kind of in the state where they were left by time. The site was privately owned for some time and it did decline, but there are quite a few historic houses that are fully restored or actually have been maintained over the years. So you get a feel for life in the fort in various degrees. Families, doctors, the managers at the site, the tradespeople. Like I said, the National Park Service did a really nice job bringing this fort to life to give you an idea of what life was like during Western expansion. head back to the car after explored the fort to its extent, making our drive back through the plains of Wyoming to our house in Colorado. See you later, Fort Laramie.